Alright everybody, hello and welcome to a Premodern video. We're going to be playing in the Magic Online Society playoffs, and we're going to be trying out the deck that I've been interested in for a while. I stated multiple times that I think the Rock is mediocre. That was obviously referring to like the old versions of the Rock. I actually think that this new revolution, whatever, of the Rock is actually quite strong. I think that this deck is very well rounded, and it does a little bit better, actually a lot better, what the other version of the deck wanted to do, which is to like grind and to play a long game and to have the average better top deck than your opponent. So that kind of stuff is pretty great when you're trying to build a deck like this one. Well, in the past you had a deck that had like 30 mana sources, right? So you get to the late game and then you're top decking Burst of Paradise and Wall of Roots, and in this deck you are top decking Interaction or 2-for-1s, Interaction Rager and Call of the Herd or things like that. So I talked to Lani and Tom Metelsky, and both of them sent me the list, and I kind of grabbed the stuff that I liked. And again, like I have no experience with this version of the Rock at all, so I kind of did like a little mixture of what both of them were doing, which granted both of them had very similar lists anyway. So the only differences are Naturalizes in the main deck for Tom, which Lani is playing like the 4 copies in the sideboard. Without any experience with the deck, I can't really make a decision on whether that is better or worse. Like I have no idea. So that's what I'm trying to do today. But I wanted to, this is one of the decks that I'm considering to an extent to play at LobsterCon. So I wanted to start to test a little bit with it and see how it goes. The main changes that happen to the deck are a cleaner mana with more lands, 25 lands as opposed to 23 or 24 that the previous lands were playing, and we smooth that out thanks to cards like Barren Moor or Tranquil Thicket. So these cards can be lands when you need them in the early game, and they can also be just cycled in the late game to look for more action. So the cycle lands kind of do a lot of work in a shell like this. Where you have some cards that are, you know, great draws at one point, but not so great in another point. We also have the full 8 discard spells. I think this is one of the keys to success with this kind of archetype, and what gives this kind of archetype a pretty decent to great matchup versus the different combo decks in the format. So we're going to be trying that kind of stuff out. We're going to see how that works out. The mana, again, is fairly straightforward, but at the same time pretty bad, because you have some very even mana requirements, but you also have like some double green mana requirements up in the curve, which obviously by turns like 5, 6, 7 you're more likely to have double green, so it's not as bad of a deal, but especially consider that Cross and Tusker cycles and finds you land, helps you fix your mana. That's kind of what I like about Lani's version, who was playing 2 Tuskers in the main deck. So that I'm interested in for sure. But the issue is that you are playing a bunch of basics, and you have some, you know, cards that demand to be cast on time. So mathematically speaking, the numbers are there to help you do the thing, but in practice, that's just not always how it works out, right? Like you may have like a hand with a bunch of like black cards, and then you may draw, you may not draw your swamps, and you have like a bunch of street abilities and forests and dust bowls instead. So that's one of the things that I'm trying out, and this is Lani's version had like 1 extra Barren Moor instead of the dust bowl, so that's one thing that I'm going to be watching out for. Volrath's Stronghold is the other colorless value land, which is kind of interesting. We'll see how this works. City of Brass is a card that has seen playing this archetype before, which I think may be a necessary evil. We'll see how that goes, but yeah, so no messing around with like birds and Wall of Roots. You're just hoping to hit your line drops, and then just like draw your action spells, and just pound for pound have a better overall card quality than your opponent may have. When we go to the sideboard, we are going to have some interesting things. We have a bunch of 4-offs in Naturalize, in Engineer Plague, and Hidden Givens. This is a very interesting tech by Lani, which I found very cool. So what this is trying to do, like it's trying to put pressure against the combo decks and stuff like Stifle Knot, and it also is very good versus Sly. Like Sly is a deck that cannot really play without casting any instance, and the fact that Hidden Givens gives you a very well-sized creature versus the card Lightning Bolt is very, very valuable. So Hidden Givens is a tech that I'm very interested in. No idea if it's better than Spike Feeder. Always Spike Feeder felt very just bad to me, just kind of mediocre. Sure, you have some like recurrent nightmare nonsense to go with your Spike Feeder, but at that point you're kind of treading water. You're not really pulling ahead because you're sacrificing like you're actually sacrificing your card to the feeder as opposed to sacrificing it to gain you're sacrificing the feeder to gain life as opposed to sacrificing it to recurrent nightmares, so it's not really that great. And when you're playing less recurrent nightmares, then obviously feeder becomes a little bit worse. So unclear how good that actually is. We'll see. Then we have a one-off in Crumble, one-off in Tranquil Domain, and one-off Haunting Echoes. This is the card that I'm very excited about trying out. Hopefully it gets to show up. But this card is gonna be a banger versus stuff like Parfait, for example. So this is what's going to give us a real shot in those matchups we have historically been pretty bad for us. Cards that I'm not playing, which Tom had, for example, include and basically are limited to Withered Wretch. Withered Wretch is a very strong card. It has some very steep mana requirements, which hopefully you're able to deal with. But the power level is through the roof, right? Like having access to a card that allows you to have targeted exile and targeted graveyard disruption is extremely valuable. So Tormod Script would be another option for Action Furnace. Like those are the kind of cards that are a little bit more flexible, really, like a little bit easier to cast and stuff. But Withered Wretch versus the decks that you're going to be bringing in versus the Graveyard Value decks, or the Graveyard Combo decks, sorry, it's going to be kind of nice to just have the 2/2, right? Like the 2/2 beating down every turn is very, very real, right? Like you need to pressure those combo decks, otherwise they will just get to a point where they're just going to overwhelm you, right? So it's cool to actually have both things in a nice little package. That's going to be it. We're going to be playing this in the Magic Online Society playoffs this time around, which is a single admission tournament. We're going to hopefully have a deep run. Maybe. We'll see how it goes. But if you're enjoying the content, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. If you would like to support my content, you can do so in a variety of different ways. The free way to do it would be whenever you use TCG Player or Mana Traders as services, as you see over there in the banner. They are sponsors of the stream, and when you use their services with the link that you find in the description of the video down below, you're actually supporting my content at no extra cost to you whatsoever, which is nice. And then you will also find a 10% discount for Mana Traders on your first 2 months if you are interested in trying out a rental service, if you are looking into, getting into Premodern or on Magic Online or whatever. Also, if you would like to support my content directly, you can do so by joining my Patreon. You can do so by making direct donations. With any donation of $30 or more, I will play any list of your choosing in a league. And finally, if you would like to book coaching sessions, that's also a service that I offer if you are interested in taking your game to the next level. That's it for the intro, and let's play some rock. Alright, here we go. Round number 1 of these playoffs, and we're already getting a little bit rocked over here. Gonna shift that hand, obviously. We're gonna keep this one. Gonna keep and bottom the redundant deed. This hand's not awful, so that's nice. If my opponent plays a mom or something, we can Vendetta it, which is cool. Basic Island. Alright, I'm gonna do the rest right now because next turn I want to cycle Tusker. Okay, so we're playing against... Woof! We're playing against the combo deck Replenish. So I guess I'm taking Intuition here. I think so. There's an argument for taking Attunement, but I think we're supposed to take it. So they are going to play Attunement here, which we can't really interact with, so that sucks, but yep. We're just going to pass the turn back, and if my opponent attunements into, like, I guess they can go double cleansing. They can, like, they have to draw 3, discard 4 here. If they find, like, White Source into Replenish, potentially that can be bad for me. Maybe I should have taken Attunement, actually. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of rough, right? Because Intuition can just go get my opponents, they can just go get more Attunements, or it can also go get like other stuff, Opalescence, Attunement. Yeah, I imagine this is not the matchup that we want to see, particularly when we have no graveyard hate at all in our sideboard. Also, we got no pressure at all. We do have Deed, however, so if we get to a point where we're playing a long game and we manage to Deed for a bunch, maybe we can get something going. And if we have 7 mana and we can just like drop a Deed and effectively blank my opponent being able to come off. Ooh, playing out the city? Interesting. Okay. Well, this Tusker better find me something good, because it's not looking great. Definitely gonna take a swamp here. Diabolic Edict. Diabolic Edict was the pickup. Yeah, that's not what I was hoping for. We're gonna be able to Vendetta of Opalescence, so as long as my opponent does not find a Parallax Wave, we should be able to do some stuff. It's gonna be kind of tough, though. It's gonna be kind of tough to actually do the thing, right? To actually keep my opponent off balance. We just need mono discard spells. That's kind of the only thing that matters here. We have no way to interact with their graveyard. And I guess we don't have Naturalize's main deck. Not that, you know, Naturalizing an Attunement does anything. This hand was particularly bad, though, right? Like the fact that we drew both, like we drew 2 removal spells that don't really do anything. Not great. Okay, so they do discard the other seal, so we have no information about their hand besides the fact that they have 1 attunement, which they replay. Nothing else. Okay. Cabal Therapy. So they discarded a Plains last turn. I do feel like I have to Therapy this turn, and I think I probably name... It's either Replenish or potentially Intuition. Intuition is another card that's interesting to name here. But Replenish is the card that I actually lose to. So I guess I'm going to name Replenish here. I should have named Intuition. I even said it. I even said it. Alright, pass it back. We got nothing going on. I am surprised that my opponent did not... They played out the Attunement instead of Intuitioning last turn. Because if they Intuition, then they basically set up Replenish for the following turn. Maybe they just don't think this is good enough. I mean, which I guess it's not, right? Because I Vendetta the Opalescence, and then like they didn't get that much value. Okay, now this is a problem. Now this is actually a problem. Parallax Tide, they're going to have Seal of Cleansing Tide, where they're going to exile over all of our lands. So they untap both of these, and they just, if they have Replenish, we lose. Okay, so they just Intuition for triple Replenish, and we lose. We're just gonna exile all of our lands. Yep. All right, I've seen enough. Man, this was brutal. So Naturalized Tranquil Domain, these are fine. Haunting Echoes seems great, and Heating Givens potentially. We're gonna cut the Vendettas, cut the Edicts, Smothers. I mean, we actually have some decent cards. It's just better when we draw them. So, I think I'm going to cut Recurrent Nightmare. I don't think this is how we're going to win. And I think I'm going to cut at least 2 Wall of Blossoms, maybe more. Blossoms does make my Cabal Therapy better. I think I'm just going to cut 1 Deed. And maybe 1 Tusker. This seems decent. Another terrible hand. Ship it. And I guess I'm keeping this one. Keep bottom Bailoff. I guess I'm gonna bottom Deed. I mean, this hand is pretty bad. Like, I desperately need to find land, but at least we have some pressure. We have some early pressure, and we have, I don't know. We do have Disruption if we do find a black source. We do have a redraw as well. If we find a black source, I'm gonna be happy about this. Okay, so if they Intuition, we really get to punish them. So we just gotta hope that my opponent's hand is like 4 Intuitions and 4 Frantic Searches. If that's my opponent's hand, we're actually in really good shape. Flooded Strand and pass. Perfect! Oh yes. Good old rock. Good old rock. I mean, we have 24 draws to find land, right? It's kind of unlucky that we're not. Hey, look at that. That's a land. So here's Wall of Blossoms. And here's hoping my opponent can't just straight up kill me from here. Oh yes, another Ravenous Veloth. This is not looking good, folks. This is not looking good. I mean, Gibbons does beat down, for what it's worth. Wonder if my opponent is wondering whether to Intuition on my end step or something. Potentially Frantic Search. The issue is, like, whatever they do, it's probably bad for me. It kind of sucks because our hand was pretty decent for a 6. If we had find a black source at any point. Sure. So this is actually kind of interesting because we don't want them to put this in the graveyard, which is funny. So I guess we want to split them like this. Like this. Yep. Makes sense. Skyclad Expanse actually looks pretty nice in this deck. That's 4 mana. Frantic Search. Scary. So if they discard 2 big spells, we're gonna be in trouble. If they don't, and we find a black source off the top, if we find a swamp or something, then we get to Naturalize plus Duress, and then for 8. And this is a 2-turn clock. This is a 2-turn clock. Source to Plowshares. Okay, play out the Expanse. That's a black source. So here's a swing for 4. And the Duress. Let's hope that this does anything. If they have another FOF, we're going to be in pretty bad shape. But the fact that they discarded 2 Darker Waste to the Frantic Search is potentially okay. Intuition. Okay. This is going to put a bunch of things in the graveyard. So if we manage to hit like land drop into land drop, maybe we can be in this game. Seems hopeful. Ugh. So I guess we're going to put the Tithe in hand. If they have 2 Replenishes, they don't. Okay, so I'm just going to take the Frantic Search here easily. Easy Frantic Search right there. And if they don't draw exactly the thing, maybe we're okay here? So we lose to like Intuition, we lose to like a natural Replenish. We lose to a bunch of things. But if they don't find those, we're kind of in business. I am going to have to like destroy this Tithe, however. I'm gonna naturalize right now. Don't love this, but need my lands. Source of Plowshares, the Givens. Okay, so we have to find Forest into Swamp, or we gotta find okay. Okay. If we find a Swamp, we're going to win this game. And if we dodge Replenish, of course. So Swamp or Llanowar Wastes. Those are the cards that we're hoping to draw here. Yes, yes, yes. Haunting Echoes, you. Oh yes, please let this resolve. They have 1 unknown card. They have exactly 1 unknown card. Yes! Woo! Wow, we kind of got away with murder there. Like if my opponent had many looks at finding a Replenish and we just dodge it very, very nicely. Okay, is Deed even good in this matchup? I'm starting to believe that it's just worse than Wall of Blossoms and just like recurring Nightmare to grind. Maybe Tusker over the Nightmare. Nightmare is hella slow. I think my goal is to like play an early Givens and then just like disrupt. That's the name of the game. Dude, Haunting Echoes. Let's go. Is this card just secretly sick? I mean, not secretly. Like it's a widely played card, but like people play 1 in all of the sideboards. I'm wondering if people are just supposed to be playing more copies. If this is just worth playing, like if it's like a worth. Jesus, like really? 1 lander every single 6, every single 7. I mean, I'm gonna keep this hand. Keep bottom Naturalize, because the Wall of Blossoms allows me to flashback Therapy. I am going to Duress on 1. Alright. Duress on 1. Okay. So I think we take the FOF. Here. He's the scariest card of them all. There's an argument for taking either Attunement or Intuition, because those are cards that my opponent can actually cast on this very next turn. They fetch from an island. Imagine they're gonna play. Yep, exactly. Yep, that is exactly what I was gonna say. Call of the Herd. Yeah, this is not working out, folks. This is not working out. Let's see if we can... Oh, they just let it resolve. Interesting. Well, I guess I'm naming Replenish. Yep. Super punished by my choice there. Super punished by my choice. I could have taken the attunement or the intuition, and that would have put me in a somewhat okay spot. So the good thing here is that we can flashback therapy, and then I can name intuition, either with the Rager or if I find the green source, obviously I'm going to go for a Wall of Blossoms. They should just main phase this attunement here, right? So they can either recast it, yeah, you just main phase it, you discard Opalescence and some other nonsense, but if you find Replenish off of these 3 cards, you just win the game on the spot, potentially. Upside seems a little bit too high to not go for it. Man, that Ancient Tomb top deck was nutty. That's literally the best possible card they could have top decked there. So discarding Attunement and Opalescence. They found Skycloud Expand, so we know 2 of their cards in hand. Land off the top, please. Any untapped source. Alright. It's not the best untapped source, but I'll take it. So if they have STP, they should STP now. Alright. Flashback, we're gonna name Intuition here. Because if they had FOF. Dude, that's so gross. So they have FOF Attunement. Yeah, that's very strong. That's really strong. So FOF on my end step. Let's see what they got. So I guess we want to put Replenish with all of the other cards. I think this is the pick. Which is really weird, but I think this is literally the only correct way to split this. Because otherwise, everything, like, they just take whichever thing they have the replenishing, and then they literally just get all of this back in this next turn and I lose. So this is the only correct split for that Factor Fiction. Which is why this card is so busted in this deck, right? I'm kind of surprised that they're not main decking some copies of this. Like, most of the lists that I've seen are just playing some of these in the sideboard. But it looks really nuts. It looks really nuts. Okay, so they can tithe now, which they probably should. And at that point, we're drawing towards specifically basic Swamp. Or, like, I guess still the best draw is, what's his name, right? The best draw here is still Llanowar Wastes, because my life total doesn't matter at all. There goes the tithe. Okay, I'll take that. Therapy U. We're gonna name Replenish, obviously. You know, we're gonna name, like the card that beats me. That one. There we go. Pass it back. And at that point, so Intuition is not a great draw for them anymore. I mean, it's still good, but it's not as great as it could be, because they actually cannot just replenish for a bunch. What they can, though, is they can just jam this Opalescence right now and swing for 4, then 6, then 8 next turn, and really put a clock on me. So I wonder if they're gonna do that. I think that's what I would do if I were in their spot. Because then next turn you can just play Wave and just win from there. So at this point we really just have to draw specifically play Wave first? I don't think I like that, because now all my lands... So I need to find the green source there so I could play the Wall of Blossoms and Flashback Therapy to name Opalescence, but now what's gonna happen is the way this works is Opalescence comes into play, they can get in for 8, which is nice, and then they basically start to do... They use Tithe, they use a Parallax Wave to exile the Tithe. Then the Wave exiles itself because it's a creature with Opalescence, and then the Tithe comes back, and from now on, basically, I don't have any lands, and I don't have any creatures. So this is just... I can't beat this anymore. I can't beat this anymore. So take 8. I imagine what's going to happen now is they're going to exile Parallax Tide. Lands come back. Wave exiles itself. Comes back. So now lands that are exiled come back. And now the exile responds. So they can do this as many times as they want, but they're just like taking longer. I don't know why. But yeah, we just lose. We basically have no lands anymore, and we can't have creatures either. So it's really hard for us to win without without creatures and without lands. But yeah, this is a really cool interaction. I'm actually really into Tithe right now. I think that Parallax Tithe / Parallax Wave is really cool, and this is like one of my favorite things going on in Premodern right now. I'm really exploring this space. So this combo, like, this is just one of the many cool things that you can do with this. Okay, that's it. Alright, so there you go. We just experienced a little bit of the fail rate of the rock, which is the mana base. The mana base sucks. It's so bad. It's terrible. And there's just no real way of fixing it without playing stuff like City of Brass. But like all three of those games, not only was I missing land drops, and I mulliganed every single game. So definitely got a little bit unlucky. But even there, you saw how that last match, I lost the game with like 4 cards in my hand, which were all green, and I drew 4 basic swamps, right? So this is what really makes me doubt about the rock. Is like it's very strong now. I do actively believe that this deck is very good. In this version, like the Burst of Paradise, Wall of Roots iteration, I think that version is actually quite bad. But this one I think is actually very strong. But you are still kind of stuck with this. Like, you're still stuck with your mana base sucking. And cards like Volra's Stronghold, like, it looks like free-ish in theory. The truth of the matter is that it's not. And you just saw exactly how we went about that entire match. Really. Like, it was just me with a bunch of cards in hand just trying to fight to just hit my land drops and to be sure that I can, cast the spells in my hand. So, that is really discouraging me from playing the rock. Again, I'm probably going to continue playing it because I do think it's strong. But I really dislike playing a deck that just loses to itself, which is really tough to say about just a 2-color deck that it's precisely attempting to not do that, right? Like, you're by being the rock, you're trying to be playing Magic every game, like quote unquote playing Magic every game. But the truth is that you can't escape those inconsistencies. Like, the mana base inconsistencies are gonna get you every now and then. They got me in every single game here. But the good thing, however, is that if you go back and look at every single game, it was like there was a lot of agency going on, right? Like, I really had a lot of choices there. I feel like the matches were interesting, even though I was just doing kind of nothing. But the futures that I have, like, I got punished, for example, by taking that Factor Fiction on that duress, right? Like, my opponent immediately top decks the Soul Land, and I just get immediately punished. So I do feel like I had a little bit of agency over how things were going, which makes me think and makes me reevaluate, obviously, how that game, even though we lost everything, it just reevaluate how much agency there was over the outcome of the game. It's not like we just rolled over and died. We actually did some stuff, and that is what people love about this deck, that every time you get to do that, as long as you dodged your mana inconsistencies. But yeah, this list looks good to me. This list looks good to me, and I would probably just try it again. If I were to play in another event. I doubt that I'm going to play this again in other playoffs, but we'll see. At least not for now. But that's going to be it for me today. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button on the way out. And I'll see you in the next video, folks. Take care. Thank you for supporting me. Bye-bye.